Hi everyone, I'm Rochelle Reimers, Demas Communications Manager. In our last video, we discussed a general overview of the 4 basic design principles: proximity, alignment, repetition, and contrast. And in particular, we took a close look at the roles of proximity and alignment in creating a strong design. Today, we are going to talk about repetition and contrast and how you can leverage these principles to create a strong and effective marketing piece. We're going to revisit the same flyer from last time. If you'll recall, this is a flyer that I made for my fictional dive shop, Rochelle's Dive Shop. I deliberately did a poor job designing this flyer so we could leverage the basic design principles to evaluate its effectiveness. Now let's take a look at repetition and contrast and the roles they're playing in this particular flyer. Repetition helps us create a cohesive look and feel and unifies an entire design. So whether it's a color, font choice, a graphical element, spatial relationships, and so on, repetition is the act of consciously repeating some aspects of the design throughout the entire piece. By doing this, the repetitive elements become visual cues that add visual interest while creating unity. And that goes for whether it's a single-page flyer or a lengthy annual report. In fact, in a piece of great length, like a multi-page annual report, repetition might also be called consistency, creating consistency throughout the entire piece. Some of the repetitive elements you see in this flyer include color. Similar teals and blues are used in the photos we selected, the color blocks, and other graphic elements. Shapes, in particular, the repetitive use of circles throughout the design. Font choices and weights. We've used a heavier, larger font for headers, while a lighter, smaller font is used for body copy. The repetition of these elements throughout helps to create a strong and unified design. Now let me offer a word of caution. Don't go overboard. Push the envelope to generate interest, but be conscious of your repetitive choices. You don't want them to become too distracting or overwhelming or just plain unnecessary and annoying. Now let's talk about contrast. Contrast is when two elements are very different, not just slightly different, but very different. Contrast can be used for a number of things in design. Like repetition, it can add visual interest and it can also help with organization and hierarchy. One of the ways contrast is being used in this particular design can be seen in the color combinations. We have the contrasting white on teal, black on light green, black on white, and so on. An example of poor contrast would be if this text here was another shade of teal on teal. In that situation, while different, they wouldn't be different enough and would actually cause challenges for a reader. We have also paired different font weights to create some hierarchy. Our headers are bigger and bolder than the body copy, and less significant information is smaller than more important elements on the page. My best tip for contrast is to just go for it. If you're going to leverage contrast, it needs to be strong. If you're going to make two things different, make them really different. And honestly, I could have leaned into contrast even more in this particular flyer design. So with that, you now have a basic understanding of the 4 basic design principles. I challenge you to take a look at the last design you created and see what changes you can make in all 4 areas. Push yourself in each area just a little bit more. As always, if you have any questions or would like some feedback on your designs, please don't hesitate to reach out. My email is rochelle@dema.org.